All right, what's going on, everybody? How y'all feeling today? I'm being joined for a political conversation by a special guest, Dr. Mark Baker. How you doing, sir?
I am excellent, excellent. I'm splendid. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. And this is actually the lane I really want to get into. I talk about it all the time on my podcast. I want to speak to political candidates. I want to speak to politicians who have been elected already to talk about some of the things that they plan on doing in the community, in the state, in the country, or any plans that they have in the future. So, can you give people a brief overview of your background? You know, where you come from, your education, career, things like that about yourself?
Sure. My name is Dr. Mark Baker. Mark Baker. I am running for United States Congress, the House of Representatives, more specifically, District 13, the newly redrawn District 13 that covers Noonan County, Newton County, Rockdale County, Clayton County, Henry County, Gwinnett County, and DeKalb County. I'm originally born and raised on the west side of Chicago, and I attended Dillard University in New Orleans for undergrad. I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated there, uh, and went on to graduate school for my master's at Clark Atlanta University, where I received my master's in criminal justice. Uh, and later, I received my doctorate degree as of 3 years ago in humanities, African American, Africana women's studies. Uh, there, I taught at Clark. Current issue, actually, about 23 years ago, I want to say I was the sergeant of Clark's police department and the shift supervisor. After I finished my master's, before I started my doctoral program, I was Fulton County uh, trained and certified. I also taught. I was the youngest certified trainer of law enforcement response to weapons of mass destruction shortly after the 9/11 attacks, and I was certified by FEMA, Homeland Security, and LSU. Um, I also taught at Clark. I taught current issues in African American studies, and I was fortunate enough to be the first male professor of women's studies in the Atlanta University Center. In 2016, we voted to become a city in South Fulton. Everything that was south of the air, south of I-20, I'm sorry, became incorporated in its own city, and it was uh, 72 people vying for 8 positions. Uh, that would be the mayor in the 7 districts of city council, where I was fortunate enough also to become the first councilman in District 7 in the city of South Fulton, representing Old National Highway. And I also served as 2 terms in that position as councilman, 2 terms as a development authority chair, which I founded and created, as well as the urban redevelopment authority. But I was the chairman of the development authority 2 terms as well, and I was vice mayor or mayor pro tem 2 terms of the city of South Fulton, Georgia, having the opportunity to pass some of the most progressive legislation in the region, being the first to write a reparations legislation, the first to abolish Columbus Day, and the only to end no-knock warrants out of the 535 municipalities in the state of Georgia. I'll just
Mhm.
stop right there, but
Yeah.
several among other things. Yes, sir.
So you got a great political resume starting out, and we want to try to help continue it as much as we can or the best way we can. You did some work in South Fulton as a um, elected official. I actually live in the city of South Fulton now, so I've been voting and living here since 2021. Actually, I love it
Okay.
in this area right here. This is actually, coming from an impoverished city, Youngstown, Ohio. This is one of the more, this is the highest end or highest income area that I ever lived in. So it is good to see this side of how people move politically, what types of things people do in their neighborhood when they want things changed. They don't just rally and march and things like that. They go straight to city council. They go straight to the district. They go straight to the county commissioners, and they make things happen. And I've been seeing that with new roads being built and new street signs when they want them changed. When people keep speeding past an intersection, they put up new stop signs that are more visible. So I've been seeing a lot of different things, and have you been able to work with the mayor, the current mayor of South Fulton? I guess when you guys were both commissioners, Khalid Muhammad. Did you work with him at all?
Actually, Khalid Muhammad is the guy that tattooed on my bicep.
Mm.
Khalid Kamal
Oh,
Kamal
Kamal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
is the brother who we were the first two. We were the only two councilmen elected out of the seven of us who started the city council. I was in District 7, and you know, Brother Khalid was in District 6.
Mm-hmm.
We worked closely together, and we supported each other, and we're pretty much aligned in a lot of the progressive legislation that I passed. We co-sponsored actually raising the minimum wage uh, years ago to $15, and I'm proud to say that I've spoken with him since then. I think last year we were always in talks about raising it past a minimum wage to a livable wage, and in my absence, the good brother lobbied and had that passed as well. So the minimum wage in South Fulton is now $20 an hour for city employees, and that's something that we both wanted to see taking those steps. And I'm glad that in my absence, he continued forward with that. But I'm also excited to know that you live in the city, and I can, personally proud to say that I'm a founder of. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those things that makes me feel good, because a lot of people don't amplify the positive things that you just outlined for your listeners about the city of South Fulton being um, first of all, 93% African American. According to the National League of Cities, we are the blackest city in America and
Mm-hmm.
have been for the past 4 years. And having over 100,000 people in the city, we're also considered a large city according to the National League of Cities. I think Jackson, Mississippi may be second when it comes to being the blackest city. I think
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans may be seventh, but we hold that still to this year as being the blackest city in America. And you're absolutely right about the people who come together in the city, and a lot of us who came to the Atlanta University Center area decided to stay in South Fulton. A lot of people know that you might live in the area, but you travel, to what we would consider ourselves a commuter zone. And we might work in Atlanta, whereas the central business district, and we live in South Fulton, and South Fulton has the highest, but actually a higher education level than the city of Atlanta, a higher uh, earning wage, financial level.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of great things that people discount and don't take into accountability when they're looking for a place to stay. And I just think if we embraced it more, which was one of the things that I wanted to do, as well as the mayor, the now mayor, I would say, he wanted to embrace and lean into the fact that we are this great, viable city, highly educated, financially productive, uh, and if we leaned into it more, I think we could have probably brought in, Amazon and 50 Cent and G Unit Studios and a lot of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When people are looking to embrace, our culture more, I just think that out of our seven districts, it's hard to be cohesive. We've passed it, uh, and I agreed. I voted for it. We passed a welcoming ordinance, almost, resolution to be inclusive, and I just think that, most cities that are predominantly white don't have to make those legislative strides, so I was kind of confused at why we have to pass legislation that we're a welcoming city, when it goes without being, it's one of those things. It's understood that, black people are the most welcoming people on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's a hard right turn that we don't have to take now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And thank you for correcting me on Khalid. I said Khalid Muhammad. I was thinking about the Nation of Islam guy that I used to listen
I
to
mean,
videos on all the time.
hey,
But
brother, that's
Khalid
my guy.
Kamal,
That's why I said it. That's
yeah.
why I said it. I actually, it's so wild because I got this as an adult. His whole head is on my bicep. This is one of the brothers that I definitely respected,
Yeah.
who spoke truth to power in a fashion like nobody before seen during our generation and our time.
Mm-hmm.
He went to
Mm-hmm.
Dillard University as well, and he also met Minister Louis Farrakhan there, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan there, and that's how he became a part of his journey in the nation and all of his great works. Rest in peace to brother Dr. Khalid Muhammad.
Yeah, and he was a little bit before my time, but I still got hip to him when I did, and that information is good no matter when you get turned on to it. So that's I'm glad you know about him too. So speaking of South Fulton, also I want to speak about another person that you probably maybe have guessed that I might have asked you about. How you feel about what's going on with Fonnie Willis? She came up out of South Fulton. Also, she's not from here originally, but she was in politics in this area also, and she's going through a lot of scrutiny right now, even though she is the district attorney of Fulton County. How do you feel about
Well,
what's going on with her?
actually, Fonnie Willis is not only the district attorney of Fulton County, she's the first female elected district attorney in the history of Fulton County. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean just first black, I mean the first female in history. Uh, uh, Fonnie Willis was our second chief judge of our city. Um, and even prior to that, she's someone who I knew from working closely with Next Level Boys Academy, 6385 Shannon Parkway, falls directly on the border of Union City. With my frat brother Gary Davis, he runs it, and she was uh, such a strong motivator, and a great energy towards you know uh, our young people, our young men specifically. She sent young men who were facing up to 10 years over to us to be a part of Next Level Boys Academy. And, they would be getting ready to go to jail, but if, they attended the program, ankle monitors on their feet, their ankle and all, for a full year without, missing a week and being on time and things of that nature, she gave a lot of them brothers a second chance. So I know her energy. People may know whatever they see in the way that we're looking beyond why you even know her name because of the job that she was doing and was willing to do in reference to people tampering with an election in the state of Georgia. I
Mm-hmm.
think everything else beyond that is fluff and cosmetic that would get people strongly deterred from why we're even here. And I think that if we're amplifying any message, it's the message that this sister was willing to take on and is willing to take on uh, a case that many people will just sweep under the rug, especially after, the January 6th attacks were unsuccessful. But I'll just leave that there. And I just think that we should, you know, not allow our energies to be exploited like tabloids when it comes to, the true matters at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, Fonnie Willis is somebody who she's been around her father, who was an attorney, my frat brother as well. And she's been in the court systems and in that courtroom since she was a little girl. And, I think that she is a sister who will cross every T and dot every I, regardless of the screw.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying it. I'm glad you actually had some personal knowledge and relationship with her before all of this stuff was going on, so you could speak to that because a lot of people don't know a lot of her background like that. And I honestly didn't know about her dad being an internationally known lawyer before the whole, this disqualification hearing. I didn't know about that. So I'm glad that we're starting to find out more good information about her. But I did ask you about it because I wanted to know, are you ever worried about, the higher levels that you get in this political thing, and when you start to run it for higher offices, are you ever worried about people trying to attack you? They play dirtier games at the higher levels of politics. So I was wondering if you ever worried about that.
Not at all, man. You have to understand, I came into uh, being a servant, an elected servant, after my careers were resolve. I had one of those desires to be retired before I was 40.
Hmm.
And, to a certain extent, I successfully did that. So, I mean, I think that it's because of that I never had to go out of my way to align myself with politicians or people in that space. I just align myself with my community and and speaking truth to power on their behalf has actually been rather rewarding, I would say, because of the legislation that we actually passed. I know during the 2020 riots and during 2021, the things that took place, uh, being boost to the ground with the people who I served, actually drove my legislative agenda. We passed hashtag 8 can't wait, ending police chokeholds, giving them a duty to intervene, things that we didn't see take place when our brother George Floyd was killed in front of us. Uh, so I believe that things like that, as well as the Central Park Five legislation, that assists young juvenile when it comes to their rights under the law, when they're ending up in situations with law enforcement as well. Shout out to my good brother Raymond Santana and Dr. Yusuf Salam, actually Councilman Yusuf Salam, who before he's now elected in Harlem, New York. I think he was bit by a bug in my office because we were pushing, this legislative agenda. As I said, when we passed the Central Park Five, he ultimately went on back to New York, and now he's councilman. I think
Nice.
that those are the things that that come out to play. Come to play when you are aligned and in tune with the people. I was told by, people who were elected at that time when I mentioned, I never forget, we had a town hall meeting in Welcome Hall, and I mentioned that I was considering decriminalizing cannabis in South Fulton, and I got overtly booed.
Hmm.
I got booed, and people was like, "Yo, you're courageous, but there's certain things that you're gonna learn that as a politician you don't say in public, even if you think it's the right thing to do." And I agree with you, but I would never say it out loud. And I won't say who told me that, but I'm glad that I didn't listen to them because I wouldn't have been the third person in the state of Georgia and the second person in a large city in this state to decriminalize cannabis, less than an ounce. While I was pushing the education campaign to let everybody know that, hey, you're dealing with a situation where 90% of the individuals who are locked up on Rice Street look just like me, your son, your uncle, and your brother. And we haven't decriminalized poverty, and that's the main reason that they're there. They can't afford the $1,000 fine that would come with such a offense back then, and now it's like it became infectious. And I believe more than 20 municipalities surrounding us have done that since I did it. And I would like to say Atlanta was the first, but the brother that did it, Brother Hall, he passed the law and jumped out of the city council. So
Hmm.
it wasn't one of those things, whereas I had to actually go through the storm. Shout out to actually Kwanzaa was second, uh, Commissioner Ted, who was then Mayor Ted, and the most diverse square mile in America, as we know Clarkston to be, was the first, which is kind of easy to do it, or easier, I would say, in such a
Yeah.
square mile of a city.
Hmm. You said Kwanzaa. You mean Kwanzaa Hall?
Yeah, the good brother Kwanzaa Hall
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
passed that second.
I'm very interested in his story. I'm not gonna lie. He was I don't know if you want to answer the questions about him. I won't ask you anything. I do want to say it. I'm very interested in his story, going from running a race that he was running on the political side he was running on to now working with Brian Kemp. And I'm not against that at all. But I do want to hopefully get a conversation with him one day about I feel like he was done kind of dirty. I'm not gonna lie, but we don't have to talk about that right now. Uh,
Well, I have no problem just saying this one statement.
okay.
I know Kwanzaa, I don't know him well,
Hmm.
but I will say this. I think that anybody that becomes our governor deserves our attention.
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily our overt support, but you have to, as you use the term, work with Governor Kemp. We
Mm-hmm.
all have to work with whoever our leaders are. If we look throughout history, Martin Luther King Jr. worked, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked with every sitting president, like to try to push our agenda forward. So we can't have a complete disconnect from those people who are in those offices, regardless of how we feel.
That's for sure, and that's exactly why I hope I could get a conversation with him because not enough people are looking at it like that. They look at it like, okay, if the person that I don't like is in office or somebody I don't agree with is in office, I'll sit it out. I'll sit political activity out until they get out of office and then I'll start working again. But that doesn't make any sense. And no political progress will ever happen. Not in a timely manner if we treat it like that. I did want to ask you,
Glad you
did you
know it.
did you have any political mentors or anybody you kind of wanted to model your career after?
No,
No?
there was I never found myself in this space. I
Mm-hmm.
went to I never thought I would be in this space again. As I said, I went to a cityhood meeting and was noticing the reps. Everybody was up. They had their slogans prepared. It was about 30 some people in the room. I did see our current mayor, who was then running for council in District 6, and I was a part of every movement throughout my lifetime, from the Million Man March to Jenna 6 to the Trayvon Martin rallies, and as well as, the 2020 rallies when we shut down Old National. Um, I think that I didn't have, my first council meeting, quote unquote, I was on a dais. And I think that this is an example to anybody else who may want to be involved in politics. I don't consider myself a politician. I didn't have politicians as mentors. I'm from Chicago, where you can't miss the Honorable Louis Farrakhan when he says that, as well as our brother Reza Islam, who highlights it every chance that he gets. Every chance he gets, he talks about how politicians, in politics, if you look at, the etymology of the word, poly means multiple, tix means bloodsucker. I never want to align myself with multiple suckers, and I would like to consider myself a public sucker.
Nice. So we know Chicago to be a politically active city, especially grassroots. A lot of history there. What about community servants? Then who did you look up to in that space?
Well, I would, I think I would be challenged if I said I looked up to people who were a part of the community service realm. I would say that I was also just a part of everything, both good and bad, during the cusp of what you would call good and bad of a change. I don't shy away. I don't shy away from, where I come from, and the reality that my neighborhood raised me with an influence of, at the time, like I said, the cusp of growth and development, leaving uh, what would be known once as Gangster Disciple, under the leadership at that time of then Larry Hoover. Um, and I put these people all together from a historical conceptual framework of Larry Hoover, uh, from the 60s to the early 70s. Of course, he's been incarcerated since before I was born. Uh, but you could see the propensity in the young man who changed and tried to give a blueprint of how we should live under, this system that could be unjust towards us. The same way the Honorable Chairman Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party, who was assassinated up the street from where I grew up on the west side of Chicago. He was just 21. Larry Hoover was 23. These were young men who were pushing back against uh, oppression during that time. And I think that if we revisited things of that era, you would find that these brothers were freedom fighters and tried to protect their community the best way they knew how as young men. The same way people would have viewed Tupac Amaru Shakur, who passed away at the young age of 25. These people were taken from us. Tupac being older than Larry Hoover was when he was taken off the streets, and 4 years older than Chairman Fred Hampton before he was assassinated. And these were, are because Larry Hoover is still alive, and I am a part of any effort to see him, you know, breathe free air again in his 70 years now, given that he didn't kill anybody and under the First Step Act, he should be, allowed an opportunity to come home. And, I'm pulling for that. But there were several strong black men role models in our communities before they dumped in the crack cocaine and things became chaotic. And, from the features of Snowfall, started by my frat brother, rest in peace, John Singleton. These are things that now, uh, by and large, our communities overall are learning about what happened to our communities against the will of people who would have been known as freedom fighters. So I have a lot of respect and deference for all of those young men who tried to galvanize and protect our communities. And I think that that may have been a part of my DNA, watching and learning and being surrounded by those brothers of the struggle and sisters of the struggle as well.
I'm glad that you brought up the age of these people, and I'm always so confused as to every generation we see something similar where it is a very impactful young black person that inspires many people to want to make change, but it seems like a lot of their biggest opponents are older people from our community. And it's like they forgot what it was like to be younger and rebellious and trying to make change. So what do you think it is about us as we age? We just start to battle with the younger people in our community. What do you think that if you noticed it? If you haven't noticed it, then that's cool. But if you have noticed it, what do you think it is that causes some of that?
Well, I think first and foremost, I have to point out how uh, Gator Bradley, he was a member of Growth and Development in Chicago. He ran for office. Of course, Larry Hoover started 21st Century Vote, where he wanted to see people become more involved in politics. He was trying to galvanize our community. To add to your point, I think it was Tupac who made this statement about 2 weeks before he was shot. On September 6th, I think, before he died. I think about a week or so later, he made his point to actually say that. I sold 4 million records and Snoop sold 2 million records, and I translate all of that to votes. And God willing, if I'm alive, come the year 2000, we're going to have our own political party. I don't have to lead it, but I'm going to spark this flame that starts it. These were brothers who were very, very young on a mission and properly aligned, with purpose, regardless of the intricacies of their youthfulness. Well, his youthfulness in particular, that participated in leading to his demise. When you talk about the older the older generations, I think that we have uh, we have failed in passing the baton, and I think that we figure it out so late in life that when we get hold to the baton, we don't feel like anybody is around more so that is just or that they feel can actually do the job to propel us faster and further, unfortunately. uh, and leadership is something that when it comes to our community is totally different. For example, if you look at any white uh, uh, if you look at any movie, you could end up seeing a white guy at any time on the screen stepping up in front of the board member saying, "Hey, I'm going to take a step back from the day-to-day operations from this corporation or this
Hmm.
business, and my son or my son-in-law even, or my nephew is going to handle the day-to-day operations, and I'm going to retain my seat on the board. But we don't do that. We don't do that. I think that we don't do it, and it's actually one of the disheartening things about our community, because I think that it takes the wisdom of the elders and the young people's energy, according to Rashid, a comment from the South Side of Chicago. He says it takes the wisdom of the elders and the young people's energy, and we don't pass that baton. We like to die with it in our hands, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. We want to stay in there till we either incapacitated or we literally pass away in that position. And I want to bring that full circle because you're actually running up against somebody in District 13 that has been in this position for a very long time. What, 21 years now, I think? Since what,
50
2000 or 2000?
years he's been elected. For
Okay.
50 years. In 1974, again before I was born, that good brother was the state representative, just as vibrant as he could be, all the way up to 1983, where he began being a state senator. And then from being a state senator from 83, I believe, to 2003, uh, he was state senator. And then from 2003 to the present time, he's been our congressperson. And, you know, uh, I understand what you said, and I agree with you about passing the baton. But, I also push back respectfully when it comes to our elders who are still, uh, you know, who's still standing on business for us. If you look at Auntie Maxine Waters out of LA, she's still vibrant, visible, and accessible. And I
Hmm.
think that uh, it's nothing wrong with sitting at the feet of our elders as long as they have it, under control, and they're sharp still, and they. You follow what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
people who are capable,
Hmm.
but when you're representing 1.3 million people, uh, and you know that your health isn't where it should be, uh, you can't attend events, and you know that it's a struggle. I don't know why they would put our community at a deficiency when that's the case. I mean, everybody, I voted for the incumbent several years because I've lived in District 13. Uh, my first house was built in the new District 13 where I'm now running, but I've always voted. And after that, I think this is the first time I can't. But it's one of those things that I ran last time because of the pushback from 2020. For the first time, we had an agenda from our marching. I think about 7 years ago, we were growing weary of marching and saying that we needed to have change. What are we marching for? And the young people of Campaign Zero came up with a political agenda, and I passed everything on that agenda in South Fulton. I pushed it up, and legislative specialists reached out to our congressmen and shared the things that we wanted to see infectious on the federal level, to no avail. I don't know if it's the lack of response from him directly. Well, that was part of it, or his surrogates, but we want to see the people that we vote for. We want them to actually push forward our agendas, and we need them to be visible, vibrant, and accessible.
Yeah, and I wanted to clear up when I said the statement about the youth and the elders, it wasn't to advocate for the elders to all step down. It was more so to say for us to look for more bridging of the gap, more support. Even if
Yeah,
you have
got it.
power,
Yeah,
like you said, there's we have the wisdom of the elders and we have the energy. So instead of us battling each other, where it feels like the
yeah,
youth feel like they have to fight the elders and the elders feel like they have to wag the finger at the younger, let's figure out how to use these two energies together because I think we get a lot further if that battle right there stops because it's a multi-generational battle first of all. Secondly, every generation we see that same battle with the previous generation. And this is going back to Du Bois and Booker T. You know what I'm saying? This is over 120-year thing that we keep on seeing over and over and over again. Even Martin Luther King's elders, or Dr. Martin Luther King had elders that didn't agree with what he was doing at first. You know, so
Yeah,
that was I
absolutely.
wanted to clarify on that one. But because you mentioned the District 13, I wanted to know that is a what I would consider a large district, right? That's a lot of people, around 1 million people. So how do you plan on staying connected with these people who, across 5 counties? How do you plan on staying connected with them and making sure that you push what they want up to DC?
Well, see, the thing is, the system is already in place. I can't get into details because no smart strategist shares the details of how publicly when there's six other people on the ballot
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't been successful yet. But I think that when I'm elected, I will work with the community leaders directly. You have people that you have a shared constituency with, from those individuals in the state house, local government council,
Mm-hmm.
and mayors. And I believe that it's vital to keep lines of communication regarding resources, especially that I could provide to be helpful to enhance my communities that I serve, as well as hearing the needs and step into the beef of the communities that relay those issues that need to be attended to and shared on a
Mm-hmm.
federal level. I think legislatively there needs to be that pipeline, as well as speaking of pipeline. Anybody who lives in Covington, Conyers, and Clayton County, we have lead pipes and forever particles in the water. Those are things, for example, I think we have $9 billion in Congress that should be used for that. And I would fight to actually start there with the state and local government, letting them know and giving a political education or campaign to let them know to have our young people to stop drinking the water until it's fixed anyway. We have a near Flint situation going on right here in Georgia and nobody is discussing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that would be my first priority, but I would definitely align myself with those individuals to make sure that, I mean, myself, the mayor, and other people in my city, we took water across state lines, trying to make sure that our communities, Mississippi and in in Detroit, I mean in Flint, they they're taken care of. But we have this crisis right in our backyard.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely important. When that report about the forever chemicals came out, I was shocked because I was living in Riverdale for 4 years, so I was like,
Yeah.
wow, what in the world is
But
going
at
on?
least you know about it. At least you
Mm-hmm.
know about it. Any of your listeners want more information about it, please visit my website, www.baker4georgia.com. Baker, F-O-R, Georgia.com. The article is there. Just click on the AJC article regarding forever, uh, what is it? The forever
Forever
particles or
chemicals, yeah.
whatever it is. Forever
The
chemicals, yeah.
the now speaking of priorities. What are some of the top priorities when it's time for you to win, and when you go to DC, and when you need to speak on behalf of Georgians that voted for you, constituents? What's your top 5 priorities? If you have 5 or 4, what are your top priorities to take to DC for us?
I have way more than five.
Yeah.
uh,
But what
but
do you
but
consider like, all
we
right,
can
this is
count.
like right now?
Yeah,
Let's,
I got you. Of course, the first one I just said. It's vital that we fix our water in District 13 directly. More specifically, Covington, Conyers, Clayton County. Um, so that would be my first. Also, I would like to make sure that we do whatever we need to do to move the needle forward in protecting our women's rights. We have our, you know, young ladies and women in general who are losing rights that their grandmothers had. And I believe that getting pregnant should not be a death sentence when, it currently is. And I think that that's something that needs to be addressed. I also feel like I need to do my part to push forward the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which I believe Fannie Lou Hamer should be attached to as well. If you are a student of history and you know what she went through,
Mm-hmm.
uh, her strides in the Voting Rights Act that would not have even been passed had it not been for her. But that's three, and you could just grab the next two from my legislation that I've already passed from uh, ending no knock warrants. I mean, we have drones. Again, we mentioned Breonna. I called it Breonna's law, and I'm still the only to pass it in the state of Georgia out of 535 municipalities. But as I mentioned, up the street from my house, when the Honorable Chairman Fred Hampton was assassinated, it was due to a no-knock warrant. Uh, we have drones, we have everything. It's 2024. There's no reason for law enforcement to have to bust into one's home without simply knocking.
Right.
Um, so we can count that as four. And I would also, well, in no particular order outside of the urgency of our order, uh, I wrote the first reparations legislation in the state of Georgia. And, shortly after, Fulton County formed the task force, the reparations task force. And then uh, I know Roger Bruce or the state Senate, the state house got involved with a reparations agenda. I saw less than a month ago. So me spearheading that in our region, more specifically being the first in Georgia, the third in the state, in the United States, period. Shout out to my sister, Robert Ruth Simmons in Evanston, Illinois, who authored the nation's first reparations legislation. I was glad to work with her, add in Cobra into mine, and be the third in the country to pass a reparations legislation. I do feel like that is something that I want to move the conversation forward as well.
Nice, nice. I actually interviewed the last election cycle Tamara Shealy, and she was running on that too at the state level though. She wasn't successful, but she was pushing that message. I'm always down for any discussions about reparations, whether we agree on who should get it or not. I think it should be pushed. But I did want to go back to something you mentioned, because you brought up Fannie Lou Hamer and the voting rights, and you also brought up earlier about Fonnie Willis being the first female, period, or first woman, period, ever to be district attorney of Fulton County. I did want to say before we got away from here, that's the case with a lot of things with black women in this country. I know a lot of people don't really understand that, is that white women actually didn't have a lot of rights. Black women did a lot of things first, like Annie Malone being the first female millionaire before Madam C.J. Walker became pretty much the second female millionaire. That was before any self-made white female millionaires either. Black women were doing it first because they were like us. They had to get out here and make something of themselves. They didn't sit at home and just wait on their husband to come home with money. They were out here working too.
Well,
go ahead.
even more important. Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to cut
No,
you.
no. I just wanted to point that out because that was just two examples you gave already just in this interview. And our interview wasn't even about that, but it just happened to be that that is the case with many things within American history, that the first woman to do something, period, is a black woman.
Yeah, because black women are oftentimes the most underprotected and vulnerable population in this country. I mean, if you're looking at the umbrella of the white male patriarchal society that arguably we live in, if it's an umbrella, it's held by, the white guy. If you're male, you have room under there because it's a white male patriarchal society, which means a white woman can land under that umbrella as well because she's white. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's no room under that umbrella for a black woman, and black women in our society have oftentimes toiled and strove and found ways to make things work and to be successful. Partly in our absence, whether it's willingly or involuntarily when it comes to the government and, different strategies to break up or divide our families. Black women have been a mainstay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is factual, man. For people, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. We already went over a little bit, and I appreciate you for coming on with me. For people who want to support and donate to your campaign, where can they go to donate and contribute?
Man, listen, this is so vital right now. Because I stepped away, and I know we agreed to this because it's Saturday, but I have people outside right now holding signs and pushing all of the issues, and I really, really appreciate them. And it's like, please go to baker4georgia.com. Again, that's Baker, FOR Georgia.com, and make a donation. We have to push through. We have, to get the vote out. We have uh, text messages to send and things of that nature to go through uh, till Tuesday. This is our last weekend. Early voting ended yesterday, so it's up, and it's time, that we actually utilize the opportunity that we have. Um, to do two things, not just get me in office. We also have to vote for John Barrow. I don't know him personally, but I do know his views when it comes to the Georgia Supreme Court. We can't just support the incumbent that was appointed by Governor Kemp because they have a plan when it comes to our rights that we're losing that our grandparents once had, like I said, especially when it comes to women's reproductive rights. But baker4georgia.com. Again, my name is Mark Baker on the ballot for District 13, U.S. Congress, House of Representatives. I'm the first in the state to abolish Columbus Day. I decriminalized cannabis. I raised the minimum wage, banned the box for convicted felons on job applications so they can go further. I've activated the Development Authority and Urban Redevelopment Authority in the blackest city in America. I passed resolution regarding the long-term effects of 5G towers, and I just saw something that came out last week about the long-term effects of 5G towers. Uh, I passed the Juneteenth holiday before President Biden, and it became a federal law 2 years before it might have had. The first in the state to end no-knock warrants, and still the only to pass Breonna Taylor's law. I passed investor harassment ordinance, which we all know now that corporations are purchasing all of the homes that's being built to the point where you will not have a pathway to home ownership. You'll just be renting. So I passed that ordinance about 4 years ago as well. Hashtag 8 can't wait that banned the police chokeholds and made a duty to intervene, and six other de-escalation rules. Require warning before shooting, exhausting all alternatives in general before shooting, uh, and things of that nature, and a requirement to use the use of force continue and write the comprehensive reports. I mentioned the Central Park 5 legislation or the Exonerated 5 legislation that I passed, the Crown Act as well, that ended natural hair discrimination in the blackest city in America. I also wrote a resolution condemning the domestic terrorism acts of January 6th. I wrote a resolution to the state regarding the acceptance of the George Floyd Policing Act of 2021, as well as a resolution to the state of Georgia regarding race-based education in the Georgia's first state of Georgia's first reparations legislation, and much, much more. If you visit bakerforgeorgia.com, you can see a list of my legislation that I've written. You can follow me at Councilman Mark for more information. I have a lot of stuff on my IG that shows the work that I've done in the city and outside of the city as well. So please, and if you want to volunteer, we're still accepting volunteers from today all the way through Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Please visit bakerforgeorgia.com or hit me on the Instagram at Councilman Mark with a DM and let me know your t-shirt size. We'll go from there.
That's good. And I
Appreciate
want
it,
to I
bro.
want to say this to people all over Georgia and especially in District 13. I know a lot of people get tricked by the massive marketing around the presidential election, but that's just one of the many things on the ballot, really. So let's say a lot of people who are not energized to choose between Biden or Trump or one of the independent people running, you still have to vote for all the rest of the stuff under that really affects you on a day-to-day basis, the local stuff, or at least the state level stuff. So don't just not vote. Okay, if you're in Henry County, Newton County, Rockdale County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, the people that fall in District 13, make sure you still get out there and vote for Dr. Mark Baker on the election form or on the ballot, and help him get there. You know, he has some great things going on. He's taking some great things to DC for you guys. And unfortunately, you know, I'm just probably one district over from there, so I won't be able to vote for him. I vote early every time, so I already voted. And also make sure you go to mvp.sos.ga.gov and you can find your polling location if you don't know where you should vote at. You can actually find a sample ballot on there also for your area, and it'll tell you everything that you will be able to vote for when you go to the election location. So I check my sample ballots every time. I want to make sure I know what I'm about to vote for before I get there, you know, and I could do research ahead of time also. So shout out to the Secretary of State for making sure that website is always up to date. You know, I think Georgia has one of the most advanced voter service portals in the country, really. And I lived in a few different states. It's the most advanced one I've seen. So I want y'all to make sure y'all go on that website, make sure you have the right voting location, make sure your address is correct so that they can't tell you that your vote didn't count, anything like that, and make sure you show up to vote on Tuesday, May 21st. You got anything else you wanted to say to the good people, sir?
Nah, just more so to you, man. Thank you so much, man. To be a young brother doing what you're doing, it means a lot to us in our community, man. And it shows that we're going to go faster and further with people like you taking the time and the interest to do what you're doing. Thanks so much, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. And after we get past May 21st, you know, we want to keep on promoting you when November gets here. All right.
No doubt. I definitely need that.
All right. Appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Be safe, brother.
All right. Thanks.